I'm having a little chat here with Julian, one of the instructors at the Blood and Iron Historical Martial Arts School, and we want to talk a little bit about, well, sword fighting and stuff, of course.
I hear you like swords.
It's kind of a thing, yeah.
Maybe.
I might have a vague interest. We are going to be talking about one particular topic, namely afterblows in sparring and tournaments. That's something that I don't think many people who don't practice HEMA are aware of. I'll just let you, Julian, talk a little bit about what afterblows are and how you handle them.
Yeah.
Blood and Iron.
Okay, so the whole idea of the afterblow is you throw a strike, someone hits you after. There's lots of different contexts you can look at it in both sparring, real life application. I think one of the big factors is armor. Armor makes it so obviously your limb's not getting cut off, you're not getting eviscerated or something like that. One of the main aspects behind it is there are two school of thoughts in a tournament application. One of them is you hit them, they hit you back. So one of them would be they get full points for the hit. So let's say I get a leg strike. Most tournaments, let's say that gives me 2 points. But then 1 or 2 tempos after, they hit me in the head. And then they'll get the full points for the head, so 4 points. So the whole idea there is to discourage me from just suicidally attacking, because it could very well put me behind because they're going to hit me in the head or something. I have to be wary about their sword. The other one, the one we use at Blood and Iron, is that if we have point systems, so, you know, legs are 2, arms are 1, torso 3, head 4, that's typically what we go for. I hit them in the leg, but they hit me with the afterblow. I get a point deduction in my strike. So if the leg is worth 2 points, I would get -1, giving me only 1 point for the leg. So once again, that gives you the general idea that you need to defend yourself. You need to be wary about what they're doing. It's not just about getting a point. Both have advantages and disadvantages. Mainly in the fact that one can be gamed to a certain extent, subconsciously or unsubconsciously. So I'm gonna pull out Sean Franklin. You might recognize him as Zoo Squatch. Scal did a video of cutting, and he's the balding nerd, which everybody was fascinated with. He is a very high level. He used to be a very high level kayak coach, and he's our head fight team head coach, all that kind of delicious stuff. One of the main things is that when he was fighting in a tournament with the rule set where the afterblow gives them full points, he said he was made a little uncomfortable. So someone was coming in for a thrust that he knew that he would not be able to defend himself with, right? And what ended up happening is his first train of thought was just to hit the other guy back to nullify their points that that guy was going to get for the thrust. Instead of, let's say we both have sharp swords, your first instinct would be to probably try and protect yourself in the most ridiculous way possible. Even if it would be a gross exaggeration of movement, it would still be a priority on defense.
Dark Souls roll.
Exactly. Whatever it may be. But he said his first train of thought was, oh, I need to hit this other guy so this point doesn't matter. And he said as a martial artist, that terrifies him. Mm. Now, the unfortunate thing is that since, you know, we are not actually killing each other or trying to do severe damage to each other, this is always going to be a problem, whether in sparring, tournament setting, or whatever. A lot of historical plates, I think it was Paulus Ector I probably butchered that completely, where there's a plate where there's a guy with a spear, another guy with a longsword. The guy with the spear completely stabbed through the belly of the dude with the longsword, and the dude with the longsword cleaved the spearman's head in half. Mm-hmm. So realistically, some types of moves as well will also inhibit the afterblow. If I cut off your sword arm or attack your leg, which completely destroys your structure, you're probably not going to get a valid hit back on me. However, a thrust doesn't stop anybody unless you manage to catch the sword arm, but then there's a whole slew of problems of what happens if you miss that and other little things like that. So it's a really convoluted topic that is actually really heated debate in HEMA. Lots of people have gone really mad at each other for these kinds of things. So I'm trying to make it pros and cons of both, but I'm not.
Yeah, if you were to compare that to the way it's done in Olympic fencing, I mean, I don't know that much about Olympic fencing, so I may be misunderstanding something. But from what I can gather, it's basically whoever touches first wins. So afterblow is not a thing there. And from a sporting point of view, that's fine. If that's the rules, if that's how you want to do it, that's perfectly fine. But if you were to apply that to the idea of historical combat, you just can't get away with that. I mean, if you kill the other guy and you die afterwards because they got a thrust on you as well, or a cut and whatever, and you bleed out, well, you don't win, you lose. Both of you lose. There is no winner in that case.
No, there is one winner, the guy who watches it, because now he gets 2 wallets and 2 free swords.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. But
so
yeah, I mean that's another big thing with sport fencing is that, or Olympic fencing, modern fencing, whatever terminology you want to use, is that it is a sportified version. Realistically, yes, you would both probably impale each other and you're going to have a bad time. We did some tests a while ago because not a big heated debate about it, but definitely a thing was the leg shot, because a lot of people don't think that a leg shot will stop your opponent completely. At least not if the afterblow is quick after. We've done some tests where one person stood in their high guard, so sword, or we use single sticks for this, so fairly medium weight rattan sticks. One person was in their high guard, the other person was ready to strike the other's leg. The goal was, if the person in high guard could still hit the person who threw the leg shot after the leg shot, then we would see how that works. With a medium power blow to someone's unprotected leg with a stick, the edge alignment of the attacker completely failed because their whole structure collapsed. Because if the whole side of your leg tenses, it tends to throw your body sideways. We wear leg protection, right? So of course you can still throw a strike after. So I've done a test where, again, I put my foot up against their leg, if they're standing in their high guard in a stance, and I tell them to start throwing their downward shot. As soon as I see them engage, I actually push their leg inwards, and it crumples them. They cannot, maybe they'll be able to hit me lightly, or their sword will fall on me, but that's me pushing their leg, and they already have a hard time maintaining edge alignment. Now imagine if the leg is cut off. Right? Push the leg, there's still some support. The leg goes off, you just drop. There's no way you can finish that strike. No, or if you sever the muscles, when suddenly everything just snaps, right? Because muscle contracts, that's how it works. So if it's contracted and suddenly releases, it all just snaps completely apart, and there's no way you would be able to throw a valid afterblow with edge alignment. Well, maybe there is. There's freak accidents. You never know. Never say never. But
I mean, it depends on at what point you were hit. If you've already built up enough momentum with the sword, then it's probably still gonna connect.
Tempo. What do I mean by tempo? Tempo, if you're familiar with music, is a beat. So what we would refer to as an afterblow would be something like, you can tell there's space between. If it's close enough where it's there's probably a double. There's nothing you can do about that.
True, that's
but if
more
you
like
can
double.
Hear space in between, that's what we would consider an afterblow in that point. And then if you hear something along the lines of then it gets ridiculous.
Yeah.
But so the leg shot is perfectly valid in terms of being safe after the strike. Hitting the central nervous system is a big one. So if you somehow manage to hit their spine, if they spin move, I guess, but otherwise that's not going to happen.
That's a good reason to not do it.
Yeah, or the neck or the head, again, lights out. Or the complete inability to actually control their body at that point, so everything would probably go limp. I believe the only off switch to the human body where if you hit it, it's an instant kill, is the medulla oblongata, which is kind of near the back of your head. If you pierce that, then it's just a complete lights out. But otherwise, you lose control, right? If you hit the bone structure of the sword arm, you're probably not going to be able to do a good job coming up with that afterblow. Those are big ones. Major muscle groups to control the arm. So there's a muscle group right here in the shoulder. If you actually poke in your shoulder, there's kind of a divot in between kind of your pectorals and your main deltoids, there's a hole in there. If you manage to pierce any of that group, suddenly your ability to raise your arm is severely hampered. Stuff like that. Where after blows you should be worried about is if you're fencing one-handed or fighting one-handed, whatever terminology you want to use, and you hit the other side. Oh yeah, okay, it's gonna suck, but if I can still attack you after that's a concern.
Yeah.
But I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if you hit their sword arm, their head, their leg, and there's space between when they would strike, that second strike is probably not going to happen. And if it is, it very well may be a light cut. If they can keep edge alignment, I might get bludgeoned and get a concussion. But at the end of the day, a lot of fighting with sharp weapons is a trade system, because next to no one will leave unscathed. So I'd rather trade some superficial cuts or a small concussion to being able to cleave their leg off or something like that. So
yeah, that's the basic reason for the whole afterblow thing. It's a good thing to discourage, deliberately taking a hit if you can get in with a strike of your own. That's very easy to do if you just count whoever hits first, and you could set yourself up so that you're going to take it in the face right after, but you get the hit in. Like if the other person's standing there in a high guard and you just strike the chest and you're going to get hit in the head, but hey, whatever, doesn't matter because you get the point, right? And that is, of course, makes the whole fight completely different from historical combat, because you can't afford to take a blade in your brain. It's just it's not a good trade-off.
When I teach new people, that's something I always mention, is that in other martial arts, depending on who you're fighting, sucks as it may be, you can take a few hard lessons and go, oh, I need to reevaluate my approach. You try something and you get kicked in the head. If it doesn't knock you out, provided of course, you can go, oh, that didn't work too well. Maybe I'll try something else. Sword fighting, you get hit once. Very few scenarios where you get to try again. So it's always something not a lot of people consider right off the bat.
Yeah. And also the aftermath of the fight. Like, you could take injuries that will not incapacitate you, that will still allow you to keep on fighting, but you might die afterwards. Especially in medieval and Renaissance times, where medical attention wasn't very good, so you might just die of an infection or whatever. So
that's why the thrust was particularly nasty back then, is because when you start pushing all the clothing fibers into that hole, you can't sew a hole shut. Well, you can, but it won't fix the damage inside. You push all those fibers in there. I believe 1570 era-ish of Germany, it was considered very unmanly to thrust, because it was almost always a guaranteed kill, and that'd be one less body for war if need be. I'm not 100% positive on that. That's what I've heard a lot of, but that's a lot of plays don't involve thrusts. Johann Meyer's Art of Combat, many times you kind of have to read between the lines, because he'll go, all right, you do this cut and the point's online, and then he'll start describing this absolutely ridiculous cut that is absurd. So yeah, sometimes you have to read a little bit between the lines with thrusts and all that. But in terms of the afterblow, because I got sidetracked again, best way to kind of apply that in a school setting or sparring setting is, when it happens most, I find, in a school setting, is someone throws a leg shot, the other person thinks they step back or avoid it enough and try and strike, and then it ends up being an afterblow. That's when it happens the most often, so you just kind of have to recognize, oh, okay, I would have not been able to throw that strike. You also have to be really careful with the going off of whoever hit first, because you also have to completely know that first strike is of quality as well, and that's where a lot of test cutting comes in, because then you have to know what will work. And it's actually surprising what a lot of new people, what they think work doesn't. And
yeah.
It's and that's because you've never practiced it before, right? Because a lot of people think a lot of quick snaps will do a lot. Well, it can if you know how to properly engage your body and core and hips behind it, but if you just use your arms, it's basically the equivalent of you taking a steak knife and just trying to push really hard against a steak. Like, no, you can't just push it against a steak. If you wanted to cut it, you either have to slice or, have some good rotation, but then everybody might look at you a little funny on the dinner table.